West Australia, OTM Sport and Leisure Planning Group, YMCA Victoria, Victoria State Government Health and Human Services Department, Belgravia Leisure, Cleaning Melbourne, VACA, Aligned Leisure, our Water and Water accredited facilities, EcoSave, and Western Leisure Services. Today, although this is aquatic operations stream, it probably sits in management and leadership. We brought it forward due to the fact that there was the announcement on Sunday by the Premier about pools reopening. And we have, in South Australia, we have a bit of a case study in that they've been open for a couple of weeks now. Adam Luscombe is the General Manager of South Australia Aquatic and Leisure Centre, and Carolyn Moore, CEO of YMCA Victoria, approached LSB to basically try and help the Victorian aquatic industry get a bit of a handle on what to expect. So they reached out to us to say, we really want to help. We really want to give everyone a bit of an insight into what this looks like. So it was a bit of a no-brainer on our end to bring this one forward. So we're very lucky today to have both Carolyn and Adam with us. So if you can hear me, Carolyn and Adam, I might just start by asking a few questions, if that's okay with you. And I might start with you, Adam, if that's all right. So obviously, with South Australia being given the green light before Victoria was, obviously this has given you guys some key insights into what it looks like in a facility. Can you walk us through what it looks like opening a facility under, basically very strong restrictions?
Thanks, RJ, and welcome everyone. And great to see some of the esteemed colleagues in the room. I hear a little bit of an echo, so someone might have their microphone on, but that's okay. We'll work through that. It's great to speak to the Victorian colleagues. Spent a long time over there, and great to be back in South Australia and have our South Australian Aquatic and Leisure Centre open. Look, it's been a challenge, I think, for all of us. We know what COVID has done, we know. Sorry, RJ, there's a fair bit of echo there. Do you want to? Sort it out?
I'm not getting that echo, but just hang on one sec here. I'll just have a look and see if anyone needs to be unmuted. Thanks. Adam, let's try that again. Sorry about that. Let's see if that works.
No, I'm just conscious of everyone's experience, and they're all giving up their valuable time as the Victorian government have announced easing of regulations, and for people to be on today is fantastic. The background with the South Australian Aquatic and Leisure Centre, we're a $120 million facility in South Australia. We are the home of the Olympic swimming trials. We have quite a large high-performance squad with the South Australian Sports Institute, Marion Swimming Club, and diving. And that's where the exemption started probably about 4 weeks ago, where we brought those high-performance squads back. The Olympic champion Kyle Chalmers. We wanted to get ahead of the rest of the world in that space, and we're very lucky to have our partnership with the Office of Recreation Sport, City of Marion, and the YMCA to allow us to get into that space and get ahead of the game. What's happened in that time is we've learnt a lot, and we've learnt that our people in South Australia really want to be in a space of exercising. And we've created a video and an opportunity to look at how that may work for you guys in Victoria. RJ, I'm not sure now. Do you want to show the video?
Yeah, I think we should have a crack at it. So bear with us, everyone, and we apologise if it doesn't work for you. We've tested it a couple of times. Some people it's worked really well. Some people it hasn't. Apologies. We have dropped a link to the video in the chat. So if you just scroll up through the chat a little bit, and I'll just drop it in again now. So there's a YouTube link. You can open it in your own time. We'll try and play it here now, and we'll watch that video, and then Adam will talk to it a little bit afterwards as well. So we'll just try this again.
So the video was created for the opportunity to educate our patrons to what a new norm may look like.
All right,
Aquatic and Leisure Centre. We hope you have been keeping safe during this period. We are opening for lap swimming and new measures for your safety are in place. Only online bookings are available and can be made on our website. There are hand sanitizer stations at entry and exit points. Once you have booked a lane and received confirmation, you will proceed through main entry to be greeted by our friendly staff. You will be given a wristband and asked to proceed through to pool deck, where each customer will have a dedicated lane. You can help minimise contact by using the pool deck for your belongings and avoid using change rooms. There will be a time limit of 45 minutes for your swim, followed by 15 minutes to collect your belongings and make your way to the exit. After your time limit has been reached, you'll be directed by the lifeguards through to the exit. Thank you for choosing to swim at the SA Aquatic and Leisure Centre. Until next time. Welcome back to the SA Aquatic and Leisure Centre.
Okay, so with the video, the opportunity was to educate our patrons to the new norm. We'll talk about how we went about that online booking very shortly. We felt that we needed something when they came in via our website, via the socials, etc., to ensure that the customers knew what to expect when they walked in. Obviously, as being the first facility to open, we needed to ensure that people trusted us. Trust is going to be the key thing in this environment. The spread of COVID through social transmission is low in South Australia and lower than probably a lot of other states, apart from the Northern Territory and WA. I think we've had one confirmed case in the time COVID's been around. So in that space, to create trust for the patrons to come back in was going to be a key asset to getting what they needed. The government came up with the space of one swimmer per lane, and to have them line up for a lap swim, totally foreign to our recreation market where we invite everyone in, and the whole idea is getting mass numbers through in summer and so on. So we had to change that psyche. RJ, back to you.
Thanks, Adam. I hope everyone could kind of see the video. I've had a few comments and text messages come through. Oh, I got a bit here, I got a bit there. Check out the video on YouTube. It's a beautifully put together video. It really showcases the facility, which is positive as well. It's obviously if you've never been to Marion to see the South Australia Aquatic and Leisure Centre, it's a beautiful facility. It's really the flagship facility in South Australia, and it's next to this beautiful shopping centre in this great suburb of Marion, which is right next to Glenelg. If you're familiar with Glenelg, it really is a fantastic spot and venue. And it really showcases that, and you've got the staff, and it's walking you through the facility and really showing the patron that they can get back to this wonderful, clean, bright, safe environment. So well done to you guys for putting that together and for having that sort of that initiative to go and do that. Just in your comments there, you mentioned one swimmer per lane. That sounds like a significant challenge. Obviously, we've been allowed 3. I still think that's quite a significant challenge, particularly financially. The feasibility element is a big challenge. Can you walk us through what some of your key considerations were? What you did for casual visitors, members, visit pass holders, and maybe what their response was to some of those initiatives?
Yeah, thanks, RJ. Look, the South Australian community were thankful that someone was going to do something. A lot of facilities have chosen to not open in this period of time, whether it be finances, whether it be different contract arrangements and so on. I guess from a SAALC perspective, the YMCA prides itself on supporting its community and being there when it's tough. We've got a history of doing that. South Australians have, just like the Victorians, West Australians, people from New South Wales, Queensland, Northern Territory and so on, Tasmania, have been cooped up for 8 weeks. Ocean swimming and swimming in West Lakes were no longer viable. Grey, black water, 5:30 sunsets, all recipes for disaster. And being an avid surf lifesaver, just that copybook of what a disaster could look like with a heart attack in the water and so on. So we needed to do something. All the outdoor pools are now closed in South Australia, although we do have great weather. it is one of those things that perfect storm was coming. The YMCA saw its obligation to support the community that had supported it for 8 years in the operation of the South Australian Aquatic and Leisure Centre, and the community embraced it in droves. With over 2,500 bookings in 4 days, the proof is now in the operation of that. Will it make money? Will it offset utility costs? They're things you need to look at across the course and what can be done. But I guess the opportunity to open up and be a market starter and support your community may far outweigh some of those financial losses in the short term. Education was the key, and you've seen the video. Unfortunately, you probably couldn't see it as we'd like it. Jump on Facebook, jump on the SAALC website. You're more than welcome to view it, or as RJ said, he's put a link in there. Education was key. The video was done to do that. We replied to many of the Facebook comments, mainly around change room use. So you bring us into lap swim in the middle of winter and we can't have a hot shower. Well, that's not our side of things. That's the South Australian government that have decided to do that based on the risk profile of COVID being a touch transmission. So we worked through that. We used Olympic champions Kyle Chalmers as our ambassador. We've used member ambassadors, and you'll see a video go up today of a gentleman called Paul Habib that actually supports and wants to be involved in the new operational model of who would have thought lap swimming being booked online to get your lane. Channel 10 also helped it, and obviously they saw it as VIP treatment for swimmers in the pool, and we've had a really positive result from all the media around town. The model online bookings was used to create a simple, no-fuss, convenient system to get 10 people per pool into SAALC. Now, we have a lot of pools and we can get multiple pools in that space. So 10 people per pool, 30 people per pool hall, and so on. With over 28 lanes, we simply have to timetable 45 minutes, a 45-minute swim with a 15-minute break so they can get in, get out, and so on. This has worked for members, 20 visit card holders, and casual swimmers. As you can probably see online with our model, members are charged at $7 and given a lower rate. The direct debit is not on at this stage. Casuals are at $9, and 20 visit card holders with their swims on the card deduct one swim. So it becomes totally cashless and an online booking system. RJ?
That's I'm furiously scribbling notes here. I think it's great. You've really thought through a lot of those member experiences, and the restrictions are a little bit different than what we have in Victoria. 10 persons per pool, 30 per pool hall. We've been given a blanket sort of 20 per enclosed space is their terminology, and no more than 3 per lane. So it's just a little bit different, but similar sort of principles apply. I like the idea of that VIP treatment for lap swimmers. Have a lane to yourself. Like that's the lap swimmer's dream, unless it's particularly during peak times, and it's still very affordable. You get a VIP, you get your own lane, but it's only $9 as a casual for 45 minutes to have your own lane. It's an absolute steal of a bargain, and I think hopefully the community recognizes that. I remember when we spoke. So for everyone listening at home, Adam and I spoke last week, and Adam, you gave the example of the local pub down the road, and I thought it was a beautiful analogy for creating trust and being a preferred supplier to the customers. Would you mind sort of talking me through that pub model, or talking the listeners through that sort of philosophy that the local pub owner had and how that applies to aquatic centres?
Well, we've got a great colleague in Marion, the Marion Hotel through the Hurley Group and the Warradale Hotel. Both those groups have decided to keep takeaway up. And if you read the Harvard Business Review and so on, restaurants have become, the new takeaway norm. Where you once would have got your Uber from McDonald's or, wherever else you get it from, you can now get gourmet dining from, a foodies pub such as the Warradale, the Marion Hotel, and they've had to do that to stay in existence. So all of a sudden, a 5-course meal is being delivered at home, and they've stayed in that space. We need to get into that innovation space also. And through this, we've been able to do that. And it's been a great success. Now, will it be a financial success for everyone? Probably not, when you put utilities and all that behind it. But if councils understand that in SAALC, the state government, there's $120 million asset sitting here, mothballed. If we can get it up and operational, the health benefits to the community are going to be massive in terms of mental health and so on. So just like the pub, who's trying to get a benefit back to the community and serve its community, so when they open the doors, that will be the watering hole that people want to go to. We're trying to do the same. This will be the venue of choice for the people that know we were around at that time. And I think the benefit of being the early opener can really be summed up in 3 parts, AJ. We're the first, we're a reasonable price, as you've said, we're supporting our community. The YMCA's agility has focused on safety, strategic vision that's enhanced our community. Our partners know we found a way when others could or would not. Our staff have been re-engaged, and that's probably the critical thing. We're all about our staff. High cultural survey, high beliefs in what the team are capable of. Many of them have volunteered their time to come in and get this place open whilst they're on JobKeeper. Working on JobKeeper means that they're back and they're getting ready for a full recovery for what the South Australian Aquatic and Leisure Centre can deliver, and that will then release the new delivery process that we'll all work and brainstorm on. I guess in that is the speed in we get back to a degree of normality will mean we can test this financial model. We need to review and develop what a new delivery model in recreation may look like. The forced catalyst of COVID is enhanced how we run our centre. Who would have thought online bookings for lap swimming? Who would have thought that it's taken us 8 years to look at an online system, okay, and we've done it in 3 weeks. How good's that? This can be then developed through new products, pricing models and staffing structures. The key thing is for everyone, we're now at the cutting edge. It's been forced. But if you go first or you get second or you're part of the first cluster of people that come out, you will be on the cutting edge of how you can run your facilities. And this will continue to be managed in a dynamic business process for probably 18 months to 2 years. And how we then operate safely and then budget will have to be created through new norms. Back to you, RJ.
I think you've raised some really interesting points there, and last time Carolyn was on our webinar series, we interviewed Carolyn and Nick from Belgravia, and there was a significant discussion about being first almost is better than being getting it perfect. That the fastest fish, not the biggest fish, will be the one that sort of capitalizes on this type of crisis. So it's interesting that, you've really reinforced that. A lot of speakers over the time have reinforced the importance of being first to market. It's a really interesting principle. I think, applied to, my own life, and I'm just sort of sharing a bit here to sort of contextualize, but with the online fitness programs and whatever else was out there, I just went with the first one that came up. I signed up to that, and I've been using that during the whole ISO period. So I don't know if it's the best. I don't know if it's I have no idea in terms of what that market is. It's just that was the first one that came up. It was a reasonable price. I signed up, and that those dollars have flowed to that provider. So there's something in that, I think, for facilities. I know we've had mixed reviews here in Victoria. We've had a lot of people on the phone the last 48 hours about, what are people doing, and are you going to open, and we're thinking about it, we've been told we have to, et cetera, et cetera. It might be interesting to see what consumers do in that, if they just start driving an extra 5 minutes to go to the next pool over because they opened, they might stay there as a member. They might stay there for 10 years. So that's something to think about. I think, Adam, that you're right on the money on this one, in the sense that there is importance in creating that trust and getting that connection back as soon as possible. You mentioned staff. You mentioned a high cultural survey. You mentioned that your staff are coming in happy. Some are volunteering their time. Can you walk us through a little bit around how you prepared your staff for all of these changes? Obviously there's training challenges and things like that. How did you get them all ready to open?
Well, first of all, it's pretty easy when you've got a great team, and Carolyn, who'll talk in a moment, has done a lot of webinars for our staff, and distance can sometimes be the tyranny of isolation, but we've experienced great support from head office back in Victoria. That's helped. But one of the things we did really well is we created what we call a Black Swan document. Now, a Black Swan document is that 1 in 100-year event that creates a real drama and offsets. Business continuity plan is probably what it's called in other words, and I think no one would have their business continuity plan predicting this. I tend to think rather than the black swan connotating a disaster, I prefer to use the Indigenous background, where the black swan is about creating new opportunity. And I'll get you to look up your Indigenous history and sort of understand. We're very big on that in Marion, in the city of Marion, and we work with our local government authority in that space. But the black swan is an opportunity. It actually is the Sydney Swans logo, the black swan in their Indigenous jumper, and actually talks about that opportunity to create when other things around you are not going that well. So the staff then were able to look at that, and we created a brain dump of business innovation, psychological effects of COVID-19, and all the things we had to think about in regaining people's trust to reopen. In this document, we mapped out the phases of the pandemic. These started with the crisis, which we saw in mid-March when we all had to close, the hibernation period, and that was all dependent on government restrictions, whether COVID was going well in your own state and so on. And we've had a good number of non-cases in South Australia. So we're coming out of that now. There'll be a staged recovery. So we know this is phase one of the recovery. We know that when JobKeeper ceases, there'll be another phase that we'll need to work into. And then we know around Christmas and then February what our memberships, even with their online bookings, will look like in that period of time. So we really needed to plan that out. And the staff have really jumped on that. Various people have helped out into that environment. And as a result, we've got a truly good culture that has really summated what the YMCA has to do in this community and get a recovery plan in place. Our management team has been fantastic in what they've brought into, provided feedback and simplified it, all with a safety lens over it at all times. The staff have responded really well. They've rushed to get back and help and use our SAALC and YMCA can-do attitude. Our solution-focused attitudes ensured staff engagement, patron education, readiness for stage 2 in South Australia, and delivering great feedback. We have a $120 million venue. The Minister of Sport is 20 metres from our front door, his office, and he will hear about it if it goes wrong. So we're very lucky in that space. RJ?
That's certainly convenient. If you need to have a conversation with government, you can just walk down the road and grab a coffee or something. But that's fantastic. I loved the Black Swan analogy as a new opportunity. I love the whole concept of the Black Swan event as an analogy for the pitfalls of inductive reasoning. I don't know if anyone's sort of familiar with that, but all swans are white because all the swans we've ever seen are white, and then Europeans came to Australia and they noticed black swans. Oh, actually there are black swans. So maybe things are not always as you think they are, and you don't know what you don't know. So it's great that you guys went through that process of creating new opportunities, seeing it as something as, okay, what this is an unknown. Let's see what we can learn and create new opportunities. I love that little analogy there. I thought it was fantastic. So I might just ask sort of a final question for you, Adam. Did you have to change your staffing levels or your structure, or was JobKeeper did that sort of give you the ability to just keep people on when you might not have otherwise? Or if you did make any key changes, what were the sort of input drivers of those changes?
Well, I think when we all went out on March, we all thought that everyone was going to probably be trying to work down their leave. How long would they have that left? And they're probably going to be seeking employment elsewhere. in what jobs were left in Coles, in Centrelink and so on. And we've got a great relationship with all those groups, and we actually farm some staff out to there through the YMCA, abilities. However, JobKeeper came in, and the other side of it, RJ, is whilst we've got a Liberal government in South Australia state, we also have the most marginal seat in Australia, in Boothby, and we have a very good relationship with our federal member, Nicole Flint. And as she said to me a number of times, this is an economic stimulus to keep people in work. So JobKeeper has been a godsend to get people back to work. Yes, our staffing levels are not what they were before, but people are back working within JobKeeper parameters and working pretty hard in that sort of space to implement key needs that we need to do to ensure safety is first. Our new policies that have come in around change rooms, bookings, data privacy is a key one. Don't just go out and grab any booking company, because you've got to keep that data in Australia. Otherwise, it can be hacked. HR and IR policies, our people and culture team at YVic have just been fantastic in what they've been able to do with stand up and stand down letters. We've created temperature checks for our squads that they have when they come in, as you see with the AFL guys and girls. Our squads have all that. So we're sending people away that aren't well. But before that, we actually want them not at the facility. Australian culture is to soldier on. Well, we don't want that anymore. We want people staying away from the facility, and we've written that into our policies. Even our car parking has got social distancing in it. We don't want people parking in the car park. We want the bay separate, left vacant next to you, so we can get people in and out of cars safely. And then adopting our sports framework for all our high performance squads, and our Marion Swimming Club has been really good. The staff have made that happen. The support of the LGA, Marion Council, the Office of Rec and Sport, and the YMCA has ensured that we meet SAALC's COVID documentation policy. So think of it, if you've got a liquor licence, or your building code, it's on the wall. We've now got to have those in folders out the front. So if SAALC turn up and look at what we're doing, we can show them exactly what we're doing. Back to you, RJ.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Adam. That's pretty insightful. I think that's given everyone a bit of a roadmap and a sense of what's going on. Did you want to walk the viewers, listeners through some of these posters that we've got from the South Australian government before we go to Carolyn?
Yeah, look, RJ, they're just simply, the South Australian government came up with this really cool graphic of what they expect people to do. Again, it's the education framework, and it's termed, how to safely make a splash. And if you go through to the next slide, RJ, one swimmer per lane. Can have one caregiver who's not swimming. I'll let people read through those, but it's a really cool graphic that our marketing team have then created and reproduced around the centre. So people see them. They've seen them on TV. They've seen them, in newspapers. They actually catch the eye, and they understand exactly what is going on with that education process. It also enables a lifeguard, if a lap swimmer's a bit grumpy and says, I want to use the change room, well, you know what, we can't, and these are the reasons why. So it gives them that visual cue to say, this is the South Australian government regulation. It's not a YMCA policy. We've adopted it because it is the South Australian government policy to keep you safe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, looks fantastic. I hope everyone can see that, but I've just been sort of moving through those slides, and it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's the federal government ones too through the health department, and then in Victoria we've got some through our health department as well. They're not specific to swimming, but that's probably something that we can certainly have a look at, ask around. Carolyn, if you can hear me, you're still there? Oh, perfect. Okay. So with the example set by Adam and the team at South Australia Aquatic and Leisure Centre, what lessons do you think we can apply to Victoria? Obviously slightly different parameters, but more or less, I would say, pretty similar. What lessons do you think there are for us over here?
Yeah, so firstly, South Australia's COVID-19 health record has been incredibly strong and has been for many weeks now near 0 new cases. I think as Adam spoke about, there's been very little community infection. I think there's only one case right at the beginning. So look, this has created a terrific opportunity for SAALC to be the first at many things and essentially be the pilot for all our recreation centres in the new normal for the Y. Adam and his team have been absolutely amazing, doing an incredible job, really trailblazing the recreation sector in Australia, I would say. Some of the key learnings at SAALC have been, I think, first and foremost, that ability to be agile and flexible. And as we know in Victoria and South Australia and the rest of the country, there's been changing timelines, changing requirements, and we've also had to implement new technologies. And Adam spoke about that in terms of the online booking system. We've also had to put in place some really strong COVID risk safety. And obviously the fantastic material that South Australia have put up, which you can still see on the screen, is one example of that and implementing that. But we've obviously created our own safety requirements within the Y as well. And we're currently getting that through all our councils within Victoria as well. Adam also talked about, supporting our people because if we think about recreation centres, people are the main thing. They are the people who really make the whole customer experience, terrific. So Adam's been fantastic at supporting our people. And I think lastly, really fighting for our community and our stakeholders to have that aquatic facility open for business has been a key thing that we've learned from Adam. Back to you, RJ.
Yeah, I think that and it's a bit awkward talking about you, Adam, while you're here in the listening in. But even after our phone call, I was just really impressed with how big picture you've been thinking about this, and even that analogy about the Wartop pub and just how it all fits together, what the community sense is, what the government sense is. I think you've really tapped into the all the right sort of, let's call them power lines, in that sense of where movements are going and what the energy is. So I just think that there's a lot that the industry can learn from Adam and the team over there. I guess for you, Carolyn, are there opportunities in this? What are the opportunities right now from your perspective?
So firstly, I will take the opportunity. Adam and his team have done a brilliant job. And I think none of this would be possible without the great relationship and support from the South Australian government as well. So COVID-19 has certainly shown how important it is to have trust and partnerships, because we can only do this together, and things are possible when we do it together. I think secondly, the opportunity is around the safety. Really keeping our people and our customers safe is paramount. And with the WISE safety record, we couldn't possibly have looked at compromising this in any way. So we've been able to test all our new safety procedures and social distancing practices. And obviously that video really helps so that our customers, even when they enter the facility or before they enter the facility, they know what to expect and they feel comfortable with our new safety measures. And I think that's something that's going to be really key as we open up in Victoria as well. I think going cashless, we don't want to be having our staff deal with cash and having queues at the front doors. So implementing that and our new online booking system has been really important. As I said, queues at the front entrance, or customers that are disappointed because they've missed out on the limited amount of lanes would have been a bad outcome. So for us, we've learnt that this time is about creating certainty for staff and customers. And of course, that new online booking system has really been successful in doing that and will be rolled out across Victoria. For our teams, I think in the weeks where they had no work, we implemented the JobKeeper wage subsidy. And as Adam indicated, we're now using that in South Australia, and we'll begin to use that in Victoria as a stimulus package, essentially, helping to reduce our labour costs as we get back up and running, because we know that it's going to take quite some time for our revenue to get back up and running. And with JobKeeper, look, we had very limited amount of time to get it going, and our technology department has received some world acclaim actually for the technology we used to fund over 3,000 people. So we've been told by the ATO we're one of the top Australian funded employees with regard to JobKeeper. So that's been fantastic to be able to not only support our staff whilst they're not working, but also to create the impetus for us to be able to get back and up and running sooner than we otherwise would with a stimulus package in a sense. We've also been advocating strongly in both South Australia and Victoria for our children and young people to get back to learning how to swim. I think I know my team and I are really afraid of the impact of prolonged time away from learning to swim and what that can mean for our community. We feel that, like our work in early learning, Learn to Swim is educational and should be subject to the same rules as any other vital education. We really don't want to see the devastating impact of drownings like Florida has experienced during these summer months. So I guess the key is our obligation on us to deliver to our stakeholders, staff and our communities to make them feel safe. And that's what the Y are doing at the moment, and it's absolutely paramount to the experience that we've had in South Australia and for us opening up in Victoria. RJ.
Thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, so it's an interesting one there, and obviously swim lessons is a topical issue. I know that there's the schools and the childcare centres and have exemptions and I know that the sort of Learn to Swim side of the industry is certainly pushing for that, and that's a key issue. And what I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot of the positives of reopening and being first to market, and we sort of touched on the financials. I think to be very real and very fair as well to everyone is that we can't afford for an LTS pool or for an inner city leisure center to become the next Cedar Meats. That would be devastating to our reputation, to our collective safety record in Victoria. We're talking about 70 million visits a year to Victorian aquatic facilities, no fatal drownings since 2015. We do have a very, very, very strong safety record. We have a highly professionalized industry, but we don't want to undo all of the good work that we've done in establishing that reputation by becoming a source of outbreak somewhere. So I'm trying to be fair to listeners that there is a very delicate balancing act that needs to be navigated. That as restrictions ease, it's not just let's open the doors and get back to business as usual, because the damage that you will do to your business and to the industry as a whole could be very severe. So I'm just throwing that out as a little caveat to everyone. I know, Carolyn, that some councils have been pushing to open their facilities as soon as possible. I know other councils are the opposite. What's been your experience so far with your contract partners? Is it a bit of a mixed bag, or is there a bit of a collective view?
Yeah, look, I think the announcements on Sunday created a lot of excitement and certainly a lot of curiosity. So the council staff patrons are all really keen, as you've said, RJ, to dive back in, but are really wondering where the best time is. So to be clear, on Sunday, we were told that on June 1, we can have obviously our skate parks back opened and managed, our outdoor courts, tennis courts, basketball courts, netball courts, etc., open for hire, and with potentially with coaching, with obviously the 1.5 metre social distancing, and potentially lap swimming up and running. Skate parks and outdoor courts are relatively easy, and indeed most of our tennis courts are already open, and they're pretty low cost. But obviously lap swimming is commercially much more difficult. It will be a difficult decision for councils, as the income from lap swimming is really quite small by comparison to the large costs of reopening our recreation infrastructure. As we talked about with JobKeeper, it can act as a stimulus package. So staff costs can largely be paid for by JobKeeper, but the utilities and extra cleaning are really significant costs. And we're currently providing our councils with this information so they can make the best informed decision they possibly can. And look, we're certainly ready to reopen, but we're awaiting those councils' thoughts. I think, look, the sensible solution might be to open some sites and get the right balance like South Australia have between providing great service to the community, but not overextending in terms of cost until we can more fully reopen on the 22nd of June. And I think the reality is that's only 3 weeks away anyway. So, and I think even now, just to understand, SAALC is the only large aquatic facility open in South Australia and is attracting really good demand for lap swimming. I think Adam might have mentioned this, but we had about over 2,000 on the online booking in the first 3 days. We had over 2,000 people wanting to lap swim. So there is absolutely demand out there. And you talked a little bit, RJ, about the demand for people to come back and us having to do it safely for Learn to Swim. We have looked at that, and about 80% of our customers would like to come straight away back to the Learn to Swim, which is really good news. But like we have with early learning centres, we have to do that safely, and it does require us to do things safely around things like the change rooms, to ensure that we've got temperature checking, to ensure that we've got the right COVID tracking, etc., up and running. And we're already really experienced with doing all of that, having had the early learning centres that we run open the entire time through this experience, and obviously now with South Australia open. RJ.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. The customer surveys as well. I know I'm being the pessimist here in this, or maybe not the pessimist, but trying to strike the balance, I guess. And I think about that Henry Ford quote about if he asked his customers what they wanted, they'd have asked for a faster horse, And there's an element of that. I think it's so important to get the settings right. We note that in Victoria it's three swimmers per lane, and how do they stop? Do they all stop at one end? Does someone stop halfway in the middle? Like there's little silly questions like this, details. And there was a bit of a question from, we've had a lot of feedback. How come it wasn't the 4 meter square rule implemented, just like pubs and cafes? And where did this sort of 20 number come from? There's been all these types of questions coming through, and I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that, but because it seems like the decision's been made. Obviously, it has. Do you think? I guess one of my concerns is now that there has been an announcement, there's definitely a community expectation that we get back up and running, and I would assume that local government councillors would be getting correspondence from their dedicated lap swimmers in their various constituencies. In South Australia, am I right that the state government will underwrite SAALC to an extent? Do you think, particularly with local governments not being able to use JobKeeper, do you think they're in a position to do that here? Do you think that they'll be able to, if they decide that they want to open, do you think that they'll be able to support the shortfalls and the costs associated with that?
So look, as a start, SAALC is incredibly prudently managed. We were given a budget for SAALC for the first 3 months, and Adam and his team have been able to well and truly work within that budget, even with opening. And obviously that is overseen by the Treasury of SA, so we need to make sure that we have complete open book around that. And I would expect our council facilities to be no different. And as I said, we're providing our councils with the budgets for opening, and really at the end of the day, it is their facility. They do need to make that decision. But as you say, there will be pressure from lap swimmers to get back open. But of course we have to do that safely, and you've seen some of the amazing measures that Adam has put in place to ensure that happens. We're planning for that, and we'll make that happen. at the Y for any council that does want to be open. But I think that does need to be balanced with the fact that it is only 3 weeks away for us to be able to open other services. So we might see people progressively opening over the next 3 weeks, maybe lap swimming first and then the other areas. As I've mentioned before, we do have some fantastic support with the wage subsidy and JobKeeper. That's obviously not available to the local governments, so they'll have to take that into consideration as well. We have been providing each of our councils with a reduced management fee. Again, that's been supported by JobKeeper. So the other thing that we have actually been able to stand back and have been working closely with some of our councils is our youth services. And most of our youth services staff are now stood back up, as is our recreation staff, to equip the youth mental health grant that we received from the Department of Health and Human Services. So as part of the mental health funding of 39 million, we received 1.6 of that. So we're actually creating a virtual Y platform that incorporates fitness, camping, mental health, cooking activities, all sorts of things and materials that will go on beyond this. So we've received some great feedback on our innovative programming and have many, many new followers during the COVID-19 as we've been testing that content. So we're actually planning, and I think this is part of the new normal, is that we can't expect everybody to go back, in the physical world. And so we have got the virtual world as well. And that pilot is ready to be launched in the next week or so. RJ.
Yeah, okay. That sounds great. I think it's definitely going to be a test for local government. This whole pandemic has sort of tested them probably more than others. But then at the same time, we're in contact obviously with a lot of council-owned and operated facilities, and their staff have been redeployed and they're doing other things. And so it seems like a lot of councils are still going, and keeping people working. I guess maybe to sort of switch gears a little bit, how can LSV, ARV, SRV, DHHS, how can we support facility operators, facility owners? How can we support industry during this period? And I will sort of caveat that with, I've got my finger hovering over a button to fire out a reopening guide. Ours has been sort of held up in government for a few weeks because with us being an emergency service, we fall under the State Control Centre, so we have a bit more sort of hurdles to navigate in terms of resources and comms in this area. But we've got some stuff coming. I know there's lots of things out there, but what else can we do? What else can we do to support industry?
Yeah, so look, I think that's what you mentioned. I think I speak for all management groups, state facilities and LGAs. When I say I think the industry needs your advocacy, so it needs LSV and ARV's advocacy to make sure that the social distancing rules are really sensibly applied. We've been working really closely with you, obviously, in the area of swimming lessons. And as you know, we teach about 65,000 children each week. And I've spoken about, I think it's a really difficult thing that they've been missing out on these vital life skills and physical literacy. And we don't want to, like many things, we don't want to see this result in unnecessary drownings or, people missing out, a whole cohort of people missing out on that vital skill. So I think that is probably one of the key areas. Harmonisation of some of the policies and procedures around the health, the COVID health safety measures is going to be really important. We've received from all sorts of, whether it's Basketball Australia, netball, volleyball, et cetera, all their individual plans and return to play plans, and we have to disseminate that and make sure that the minimum amount in each one of those is adhered to. So I think harmonising that will be something that's incredibly important. So it'll be great to see when you press the button exactly what your plans look like, RJ.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we worked with Fitness Australia to do ours, and at the time, our end was sort of getting held up. So they sort of went ahead with theirs very early, as we've got great relationships with them, as you can imagine, and there's some really key safety experts in that organization as well, looking at the dry side of things. It just is what it is for us, unfortunately, but hearing you loud and clear as well that you need that advocacy, and it's something that internally, we certainly push for. It's something that we sort of see as something that you guys definitely need. Harmonization, I think will be key. It's funny because ultimately we, until it comes out of the Premier's mouth in a press conference, it's not happening. So we sort of we are sort of. It's an interesting time in that even this advice on safe swimming is, it's not necessarily based on any pre-existing frameworks or accepted principles. It's just come out. It is what it is, and we all have to be grateful, I guess, that we are getting an opportunity to open and to move forward. Certainly, so you never look a gift horse in the mouth. You gotta be grateful for that opportunity. But hopefully our guide will sort of fill in some of the blanks, and we're working very closely right now on clarification for program pools, enclosed space. What does that mean? Can you erect hoarding and, extraction fans and whatever else you need to do? Is it worth it? How long will it be until the next phase of easements, and what does that look like for pools and indoor sporting venues? So there are a few moving parts which we're looking at. Other than that, we've had a few questions come through. Maybe Adam, they're a bit more specific to what you guys are doing, but they might be more sort of geared towards you, Adam. We've got questions around the online system. Have you considered bookings for the health club? What do bookings look like? Are they in blocks, allowing for cleaning time in between? I don't know if you heard that, Tommy, but it's 45 minutes with a 15-minute break in between. And then the last question was, are you checking temperature for visitors to the facility? So I don't know if, Adam, you can speak to any of those. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, okay. Happy to answer that. Basically, there is cleaning time. That it's in that 15 minutes where the staff wipe down anything. We've got medical grade sanitized wipes. We purchased the same ones as the Royal Adelaide Hospital use. So therefore, it's very, very clear, what the health department expect and so on. What we've found is sometimes the wrong chemical can actually have an adverse reaction around the pool deck. So with the medical grade, they don't have that. So that becomes very important from an OH&S perspective. So I've looked at it at that level. In terms of the system, it's Nabuki. You can see that on our site. It works really well. And yes, it will be considered in terms of health club when we start to move towards phase 2 in South Australia, the 5th of June. We have a long weekend that weekend. So whether we go the 5th of June or the 9th of June, we're still working on that as we speak. But there will be an expectation that health clubs will start to re-engage in that period of time.
That's fantastic. And any sort of temperature checks, things like that?
Sorry, yeah. So the temperature checks, our squads definitely do that. And we've worked with the South Australian Sports Institute and RAS doctor, Dr. Jeff Farrell, who's we actually became, the Marion Swimming Club became part of the community test case to get community sport back and going. And after 2 weeks of testing, we're still continuing with those temperature checks. In terms of normal patrons coming in, we will have a scanner at the front in the not too distant future that will take a temperature. However, in South Australia, we can't legislate that our MSO or a CSO can ask that person to leave. However, we would be encouraging anyone with a temperature over 38 degrees not to enter the facility.
Yikes! That's kind of scary that you can't ask people to leave. Is that across the board? Is even if there's unsavory behaviour and things like that? Or do you have that challenge?
Yeah, no, we can definitely ask that. This is around, we're not medical professionals, and we're checking that with SA Health at the moment and what their expectations are. So, for instance, again, this is about brand reputation. So you know, people will jump on public transport. They're not seeing those temperature checks on public transport. Whether SA Health believe that is a necessary side of the business or necessary, you know, precaution to be taken, they've said to us at the moment they would prefer to run the line that if you're not well, don't come. So, you know, that puts more onus on the person before they actually get here.
Yeah, very, very interesting, and how the duty of care works, and who will be held responsible, and there's going to be so much sort of fixing things up after the fact down the track. Thinking about the sort of my background is I sort of studied law for a few years, and I'm just thinking about, you know, even with under normal, you know, society operating as normal, there's just so many little gray areas and how those play out. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. I'm sad to hear that you don't have that freedom to make what I would think is the right call, to say sorry. You know, this is an unacceptable risk. Look, other than that, if anyone's got any questions coming through, we've got some comments. We've got consistently creating great culture, strategic mindsets, and resilience. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Carolyn. From Sheila, probably a familiar name for you, Adam, certainly.
Yes, definitely. How are you, Sheila?
And we've got a question just around another sort of logistical question. We are in the operations stream, so we do get a lot of logistics type questions in these streams. But how are staff managing time limits? Is it a PA announcement? Are swimmers expected to monitor their own time, or is it, you know, it's a block? You know, a bell rings and everyone gets out, and that's how it happens.
Well, we're blessed being the Olympic venue, that Olympic trials venue. We have these two whopping great score clocks in the pool hall, and up on video boards are countdowns. So they start at the hour, and it will tell them how much time's remaining. And at 45 minutes, the lifeguard will just gently walk past and say, you know, 5 minutes to the 45-minute zone, 5 minutes to go, folks, and everyone jumps out, and it's nice and cordial and orderly, like it always is in South Australia.
Of course, and everyone's very polite there and very well spoken. I spent a lot of time in Adelaide, so I think, and maybe Tommy, to answer your question as well, I think we're at a time of all-time community resilience and adaptability. You know, in very few periods of human history, and certainly in our sort of modern society of, you know, convenience, have we had to make so many deep-cutting changes. So I think consumers are primed to deal with change, and certainly staff as well. So I think now's a great time to maybe implement some other changes you might have been sitting on as well, if you were worried about what members would think. I'd just like to thank you both so much for your time, Carolyn, Adam. Thank you so much for coming on board today and speaking to all of these people all throughout the industry. There will be a recording available on our webpage. We tend to see that whatever we get in the live session, we get 4 or 5 times that on the recording later. So thank you so much for your time, for your thoughts, for trailblazing the way out in South Australia, and Carolyn as well for you know, thinking broadly around how that would be adapted to the 49 aquatic facilities that the YMCA manages in Victoria. That's the council-owned pools, not to mention all of the King Swim facilities and Learn to Swim facilities that you have as well, community centers, etc. So thank you so much for your time and thoughts. It's been great having you. On behalf of Fitness Australia and Lifesaving Victoria, thank you.
Thanks, RJ.
So what I'll do, everyone, is I'll end the session now. Thanks everyone for listening in, and we hope that you have a busy but great week in preparing to open your facilities. As always, safety first. And if you need any support, get in touch with our team, and/or I'm sure you can contact your local YMCA. They probably have they might be a little bit ahead of the curve for everyone, and you might be able to talk to your colleagues over there. Thanks again, everyone.